Okay, let's keep going. So this is the female reproductive system, the sagittal section. So that's the uterus, and this is the renal system. That's the bladder. So that's the female reproductive system. The uterus, and to the ovary, and this is the fallopian tube, also called the uterine tube. And you found the fallopian tube, the opening called the infundibulum, they have those finger-like structure, and the ovary, they're not sealed, so female is the open system. And during ovulation, they will release a chemical molecule, and as the infundibulum come closer, so cover the ovary. So, but actually it's an open system. And that makes the female system more susceptible to the STD. So STD can cause more harm in female than the male, and the reason is the female is an opening system. So it can go to the abdominal cavity, affect all the inner organ. Not like the male. Male is a closed system. So let's look at the cross section. And that's the cross section of the female reproductive system. So the sperm comes from here, and it will go through the whole uterus, and they will come to the fallopian tube. So the sperm and egg fertilization process happen inside the fallopian tube. And after fertilization, the zygote, the fertilized egg, will go from the fallopian tube into the uterus. It takes about 7 days. And implantation happens here, and then the fertilized egg gonna grow into a fetus, eventually into a baby in the uterus for about 9 months. So let's look at the ovary. So the ovary is the primary sex organ in female. So it's the place for the oogenesis. And that's the video. I will leave it to you. So the process is, in the ovary you have those primordial follicles. And every month, one of them gonna mature. It will develop from the primary, secondary, tertiary follicle. And this process takes about 14 days. So the whole process is 1 month. So the first 2 weeks, one of the primordial follicle gonna mature. And at first, a few of them mature, but eventually end up with one. One will keep developing to the tertiary follicle, and something happens. That's this, ovulation. So ovulation happens in about 2 weeks, in the middle of the whole process, about 2 weeks. And this egg gonna go to the fallopian tube. So the infundibulum, those finger-like structure, will come here, of the fallopian tube gonna come here, and when the ovulation happens, this egg automatically go into the fallopian tube. And let's look at the rest of the structure. The rest of the cells, called the corpus luteum, it will hang in there for about 2 weeks, actually a little bit less than 2 weeks. Sometimes this is called the yellow body because it's yellow color. So the corpus luteum, its main function is produce the hormone as the uterus to hang in there. And to have a baby, you need to have 3 things. You need to have an egg, a sperm, and a uterus. And they need to cooperate pretty well. So you need to have the uterus hanging there just in case the fertilized egg comes. So that's the corpus luteum's job. It will produce luteinizing hormone. It will produce the progesterone. And it will, as the inner wall of the uterus, hanging there. And it will hang in there for about less than 2 weeks. So eventually, if nothing happens, it will shrink. When it shrinks, the progesterone level won't be able to maintain. So what happens is the inner wall of the uterus won't be able to hang in there, so the bleeding starts. And the next month, it starts over. So in the ovary, every month this happens. Start from puberty and until menopause, until this process stops. So the whole process regulated by hormone. So we found, let's look at next slides. These slides. So it tells you, okay, the whole process from here to here took about 30 days. And we explained in the ovary, the first 2 weeks is the follicle mature, and about 14 days ovulation happen. And the egg gonna go to the fallopian tube, and the rest of the cells turn into the corpus luteum, yellow body, and lasts for about 2 more weeks, and eventually it shrink. So this the process happens in the uterus. In the ovary. We just talked about it. And this process is regulated by the hormone from the brain, from the pituitary gland. So they have the luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone. And ovulation is triggered by the peak of these two hormones. So you found about ovulation about happens, luteinizing hormone, follicle stimulating hormone, these two hormones concentration go to the peak. Now let's look at corpus luteum. Corpus luteum's job is to ask the uterus to hang in there, and uterus listen to one hormone. The hormone is progesterone. So now let's look at progesterone. That's the green one. You found the progesterone levels start to increase after the first 2 weeks. Now it totally makes sense because that's when the corpus luteum start to work. So the corpus luteum will release progesterone. And this progesterone's job is to ask the inner wall of the uterus to hang in there. So now let's look at the inner wall of the uterus. It starts to grow, but it grows a lot in the last 2 weeks. So just in case the fertilized egg gonna come here and have the implantation happens around here. So that's why the progesterone level and the inner wall of the uterus, they correspond. It's a linear relationship. Until the corpus luteum could not hang in there anymore, it shrink, and the whole progesterone level decrease, and the inner wall of the uterus start to disintegrate, and the bleeding cycle start. And next month, start over. So that's what happened in the female's body. And in female, the whole process is also regulated by the endocrine system. So still from the hypothalamus, release GnRH in the anterior pituitary gland. They have the follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. So the follicle stimulating hormone, the name tells you its function is developed follicles. So it will ask the follicle development. Also secrete estrogen. Estrogen is the main female sex hormone. In short, this hormone's function is make the female look like a female. So when we look at its function, okay, you're gonna have the bone, the muscle grow, the second sexual characteristic. Basically, it makes the female look like a female. Now let's look at the luteinizing hormone's function. It will secrete progesterone. Oh, sorry, go back. So it will secrete progesterone. Trigger it secrete progesterone by corpus luteum. So it will make the inner wall of the uterus hang in there, and the whole system is regulated by the negative feedback. So that's negative feedback to maintain the correct concentration. So that's the female reproductive system, and in the lab you need to study this structure, know which one is which. And this is the inner wall of the uterus. So it's a lot of blood vessel system, capillary. And the reason is if the fertilized egg come in here, then the cell of the egg and the cell of the uterus gonna grow together, become placenta. So they have a lot of blood vessel there. And this cycle lasts for about 28 days, or sometimes they say one month. And that's this cycle. So we'll talk about this. Let's look at this. If your body temperature is very stable, and you can actually know when you ovulate, because when you ovulate, your body temperature increases by about 0.3 degree. So if your body temperature is very stable, and you measure your, say, every morning you wake up, you measure your body temperature, and the day your body temperature increased by 0.3 degree, and this is when ovulation happens. Okay, that's it.